Hello everybody, once again I am Kefren, and for this video I'm wanting to talk about another of the mysterious and more enigmatic figures in astrology, Lilith. Now Lilith is kind of classically said to be the thing in your chart that corresponds with the darker parts of your personality, things like taboos, fetishes, all of that kind of thing. Again, that's a kind of general and vague understanding of what exactly this thing is, and of course human beings are much more complex than all of that. So I wanted to share kind of what I have come to understand Lilith as in terms of part of who you are and in astrology. So to start off with, where Lilith comes from, the character is from ancient Hebrew texts, such as the original Babylonian Talmud, in which she's basically described as a demon. She's described as a dark spirit. The word Lilith is Hebrew for night creature or night monster, but basically some kind of being of the night, being of the darkness. In the original ancient text, she's kind of more described offhand, and it was later on in about the 8th century that rabbinical scholars and other writers personified her as another human being who was created alongside Adam, actually prior to Eve. So Lilith was the third human being in the Garden of Eden. There was a legend created in the 13th century by a rabbi which says she was actually Adam's first wife. And it was when she refused to submit to Adam that she ended up leaving the Garden of Eden and marrying one of the archangels. So there's a lot. There's a lot to do with Lilith and all of that. But who is this person? Why is she a demon? What about her character makes her this kind of dark and scary figure in our mind's eye? Understanding her through astrology has really given me a much greater perception of who this person is in each of us and what it is about Lilith that is actually really important to understand within the context of your own personality. Astrologically, Lilith is the apogee of the moon, and what that means is that the orbit of the moon is elliptical. One side of it, one of the pointy ends, is farther away from the Earth than the other side. And so Lilith is the part of the moon's orbit that is farthest away from the Earth. So as the moon passes along the Lilith point, it's at its most distant location from the Earth. And if you look at the moon as your emotional center in astrology, what that means is that your sensory perception through your emotions is going to be a little bit dim as it passes across that point. It's a point at which your ability to see with your feelings is foggy. It's a little bit clouded. Things aren't quite as clear or crisp or sure when the moon is at that point. And so, as I see it, Lilith in your chart represents a point of darkness. It represents a point that is in your blind spot. You can't see it. It's kind of like a black hole in your mind. Every time your mind passes over this particular topic or this particular thing, there's darkness there, and so your perception, your conscious mind, doesn't understand this thing. It doesn't quite perceive this thing correctly, or there's some kind of fear, doubt, or even rejection, a denial that this thing is there. It's a darkness that dwells within you. And so that's why Lilith is associated with these things such as taboos and the dark parts of your personality, is because evil people who do negative things in life, evil things, negative things, all of that really means is unbalanced. It's at some point in their life, these people were hurt in such a terrible way. They experienced such darkness in whatever aspect of their life that it's kind of like a scar. It was a mental trauma that is put into your mind that then clouds your perception of that thing forever onward. So wherever Lilith is in your chart is going to be a place where you experience fear and doubt. And fear and doubt, when we don't deal with that correctly, that's when it turns into negative stuff. That's when it becomes evil. When our uncertainties and our fears, we act upon them, and when we go way out of our way just because we're afraid of something happening. As a really good example of this, I really love the story of Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars. I don't like those first movies cinematically, but the story is extremely important to understand the archetype of this character, because understanding Anakin has a lot to do with Lilith. In episode 1, in that first moment where he's talking to Yoda, Yoda says, "No, I don't want you to be trained as a Jedi because you are experiencing fear. And fear leads to anger, and anger leads to hate, and hate is the dark side. And so because you're experiencing fear, you're not allowed to be taught as a Jedi." And so, Obi-Wan, takes responsibility for him, so Yoda ultimately agrees, but it was because of that whole attitude. It's because Yoda taught Anakin to suppress his fear. Yoda told Anakin that your fear is wrong. It's the dark side. It's evil, and it's going to destroy you and everything you know. And so from then on, he went about the entire rest of his life repressing the fear. And his mother was murdered. He had no other family. He was orphaned. He had experienced slavery. He was right to experience fear. Anybody going through his life would be experiencing the same amount of fear, the same amount of confusion and anger and resentment. So it was the repression of all of those dark feelings that ultimately created Darth Vader. It was because Anakin resisted and denied all of the pain that he was feeling in his life from those traumatic experiences that he ended up being the destruction of the entire Order of the Jedi. And it's so fascinating because the prophecy about Anakin is that he would bring balance to the Force. And, at the time, the light was grossly outweighing the dark. And more light than dark is still imbalance. A lot of people do terrible things with the best of intentions, but that doesn't make it good. That doesn't make it for the well-being of all, And so Lilith is so important to understand, because Lilith tells you what you're repressing. Lilith tells you what you're afraid of, and what it is that if you remain afraid of it, if you remain in the dark about it, it will consume you. And as Carl Jung said, that which you resist persists. So Lilith is an important part in your natal astrology, because that's the part of yourself that you need to explore. That's the part of yourself you need to become more aware of, and that you need to address your fears. Lilith points to you what it is you don't want to face head on. But the thing about fear is that in order for it to go away, all fear really is an ignorance. That's all fear is. You're just in the dark about it. You don't understand what this thing really is, and so you're afraid it's going to hurt you. That's all. But whatever it is we understand, how many things in our human history have we collectively feared? Things such as God or nature or other human beings. How many things have we feared? But it's always the more we learn about it, the less afraid we are. The more we understand something, the more we understand how it works and how to relate to it in order to have a harmonious existence. So wherever Lilith is in your chart, that's the place you're going to experience doubt. That's the place you're going to experience insecurity. If your Lilith is in the sign of Libra, you're going to experience an insecurity when it comes to relationships, or you're going to feel that you're never perfect. You're never entirely in balance. Right now, Lilith is kind of skirting back and forth between Cancer and Leo. And so we might all be feeling a lot of insecurity in regards to our creative expressions, in regards to our own identity, our material security, the security of our homes or our families, where we fit into all of that. We might just be experiencing some doubt or some questions about those things. And so Lilith ultimately shows us how we can become empowered. By confronting our fears, we're better able to do the things we didn't think we were capable of. You know, if we're afraid of socializing, if we're afraid of success, if we're afraid of failure, you know, those fears can keep us from the joys of life. Those things can stop us from attracting to ourselves the best that life has to offer. And we can have, you know, not so good experiences just because we're too afraid to go beyond our boundaries and experience something new. And so if you embrace the darkness within you, if you embrace those fears and those doubts and those pains that you've experienced from your past, if you go to those traumas and if you confront them and if you work with them, if you accept those things, they will become your power. You will become more powerful than you once were because you were able to do something you never thought you could before. So that's the big important message about Lilith. That's what Lilith is all about. If you want to know where your Lilith is or how that affects your life, contact me for a reading. I am so happy to illuminate the darkness for you. Until next time, everybody have a wonderful day.